When we talk about the Franschoek paragliding site, we're actually referring to the Montrachel Nature Reserve takeoff area. To go and fly there, to use the takeoff site, you do need to buy a permit at the gate. It's 50 Rand a day or 300 Rand actually. I've written 400 Rand there, but it's actually 300 Rand for an annual permit. Very, I think it's very fair from them. Montrachel also has a very good, they like the paragliders. They like having us there, but they've also asked us to please adhere to their rules and respect the nature reserve. There's some rules that you also find at the gate: never hike alone, no dogs, no drones, no littering, don't pick flowers or damage plants, no open fires, no advertising flags, posters or billboards, no vehicles beyond the main gate, stay on the trails and use only the indicated launch and landing area. Pilots intending to fly from the site, they've asked me to make sure that pilots know what the rules are when they go and fly there. And that's what we're going to go through tonight. And you use the site at your own risk. Montrachel Nature Reserve is part of the UNESCO declared Cape Winelands Biosphere Reserve. And it is there to protect the very unique Cape fynbos stuff that goes on there. Cape fynbos flora that grows there. It's part of the World Heritage Site, and obviously if we're going to damage the plants there, they're not going to have us. So as we go along, I'll explain to you. The launch site takes a westerly, anything from a northwest to a southwest works. The altitude of the takeoff site is just under 780 meters above sea level, and we have a nice high ceiling at Franschoek of over 7,500 feet, or 7,500 feet. The launch area is in a venturi and can get strong in warm, sunny days towards the midday. There are some hairy, rocky outcrops southwest of the launch that can also cause turbulence in stronger conditions. The launch surface is natural vegetation, and care should be taken to check lines before launching. Only one glider can launch there at a time. Top landing is possible, but requires landing on the existing roads, trails, or on the eastern end of the launch area. You can't just land anywhere in Montrachel Nature Reserve because we can potentially damage plants when we land.
So yes, the eastern end, that faces behind takeoff.
Yes, yeah. So the trail that goes to takeoff on the western side or the left-hand side as you walk onto launch, you can take off.
Directly behind takeoff, between
Yes.
the gravel path and takeoff.
Exactly.
So everyone's good.
Yeah, and I have approached Montrachel, and we will try and put something up there, something to show people where what is, and so that everyone knows what to do. So when you fly from Montrachel Nature Reserve, it's quite a long glide to get to the fynbos landing area. The fynbos landing area is situated on the far end of the Franschoek agricultural estate. It is a long rectangular shaped field, and you can land there in a westerly or an easterly, obviously towards town into the valley or back towards the mountain. And the altitude of the landing area is 340 meters above sea level. The fynbos landing area has also got quite a lot of fynbos in it. I think that's often what scares people away. But there are quite a few trails. The next slide, we'll see a map of it. What you need to be aware of is that about 220 meters further upwind of the landing area, there's tennis courts and some big blue gums. And on a warm sunny day, those obviously, the tennis courts heat up, the blue gums create a bit of a wind shadow, and it's the perfect trigger point for thermals. And you can sometimes also encounter when these thermals trigger that the wind is from the back when you come into landing, and you might have to land towards the mountain. Or you can catch one of these thermals. I have heard it, if I have to roughly pick a number, almost half the guys who come in for landing there in summer experience either an overshoot or an undershoot. So it's a tough landing. You need to set it up properly. If you go there you can see the landing area with the tennis courts. This is quite an old picture, so that the trees aren't so big yet. John has gone and cleared some of the fynbos towards the eastern end of the landing field. You can see on the eastern end, inside the boundary wall, there is a vineyard that you have to clear. Then there is a boundary wall, and then there is quite a large area that you can land in.
Telephone wires as well on the eastern side.
Some telephone wires in the estate,
Just on the tree
just underneath that picture there. Yeah. So watch out for it. It is a suburban area. On the left-hand side, or on the southern, there's some snakes, and on the southern end, where the street is, there's lampposts, there's tall trees, there's buildings all over. It's a residential area, so you need to be careful. Like we said, 760 to 80 meters is the takeoff height. Landing is just over 300 meters. That is a height difference of 440 odd meters, and it's just over 2.5 kilometers glide from takeoff to land. That's a 1 to 5 glide. In moderate light conditions, when it's not soarable, most gliders should be able to make that. The problem is if we scratch too low. You need to make an early decision to make the landing area. And then I just like to quote Via in the aftermath of our incident. Via posted on one of the groups, learn to understand your glide ratio in different headwinds and the type of conditions you can stay up in. If you're not sure about any of those, rather don't fly or get comfortable learning those elsewhere where landing options are plentiful. And that's what we re-established after this incident. I had a chat with Barry and several other instructors, and you really should be able to spot land on your own before you go fly at Franschoek. Never mind being able to judge your glide and stuff like that, that is also important. But students that come there with their instructors, please note, they must be able to land unassisted in a rather tight spot. Otherwise, you can't fly there. It's dangerous to fly there. It's dangerous for yourself, and you're going to jeopardize this beautiful site. So when you take off from Chamonix, my recommended route is that you stay above the road and up against the ridge, all along the road towards the south. If there is any lift on the day, you're going to encounter it on this stretch of ridge. If you do not find any lift on this glide towards the corner here, just before the Franschoek rocks on the mountain, it is not happening. Glide straight out to landing. This glide now goes to the Chamonix landing area, which is just to the north of the Fynbos LZ. And because of a house that we have been asked in the estate, and I'll share a bit more about that in a minute, we're actually also approaching via the Fynbos LZ. So you have to miss the sensitive house, go towards Franschoek Estate Gate, and then onto the Chamonix landing field. The Chamonix landing field is a nice rectangular field with quite long grass. They have cut the upper section for us. So it's a nice landing area, much better than the Fynbos in the Fynbos landing zone. It is also quite sheltered, and it is right in the dip of the valley, as you can see there next to the river, which means you also often encounter wind shadow there and even katabatic conditions. So it can be almost soarable at launch and still be katabatic at the Chamonix landing. So recommended that you take a windsock when you go and fly there. The Chamonix pasture landing zone is on the southern boundary of Chamonix Estate, approximately 200 meters north of the Fynbos LZ. The area is approximately 300 meters long in a north-northeast to south-southwest orientation and 100 meters wide. There's tall trees all around it and some irrigation pipes and also a fence at the western end of the landing field. I do not recommend beginners land there without a windsock being present or without assistance. The landing zone can be accessed through the Chamonix Estate entrance on 8 Street. To access it, prior arrangement needs to be made with the security. Otherwise, it's recommended that pilots just walk to the estate gate from the landing field. It's about a kilometer hike.
Uphill.
No, not too much uphill, Michaela. It's actually not that uphill. So there's the Chamonix landing field. It's a little bit lower than the Fynbos landing field, but you can see there, here's the Fynbos, there's Chamonix. So the only real difference is this is Fynbos and that's grass. And that's why I prefer to land there with my tandem clients. They pay for nice grass. But with regards to getting there, setting up for landing, very similar. The Fynbos has a few obstacles. Chamonix also has the tall trees on the side. There's also the power lines. And then the big problem that we'll address in a minute is a house just across the river. You also need to make an early decision to make the landing zone and be careful of the wind shadow and katabatic conditions on the landing field. The sensitive area is the Franschoek agricultural estate. If you look at that picture in the back there, just above the red arrow is the takeoff area, and both our landing areas down here in the bottom of the screen. So we literally have to fly over the estate if you fly out to the landing zone. You have to. We can take these, we have rights as pilots to use the site. We have been using it for many, many years, but we really would like to avoid a fight. We can work with them. There are pilots in the estate, people who have done paragliding. Some of them have flown with us. They don't not like us, but if we're going to upset them, there are people who are pushing to get a fight. And we want to keep our friends on our side and avoid a fight, because this is a beautiful site, and they are even willing, in our last conversation, they said we can look at another emergency landing field that is even closer to the takeoff area. If we are willing to work with them and behave like pilots, you know, we're not children who get kicked out of the bar and banned from it. You know, that's the feeling I sometimes get people have of us. We're these reckless children that get kicked out of the bar and you have to sneak back into the flying. We're not that. We're aviators. We're pioneering the game of personal aviation. We're pilots, and we need to behave like that. That gives us rights to fly and to use certain sites, but also responsibility. We need to use these places responsible and respect landowners.
I've got a hand raised here. Sue, do you want to go ahead? Sue, you have your hand up. Was that a high five?
She was asking for another glass of wine.
All righty. Okay,
Yeah,
carry on.
Say something about what you just said there. Just remember, us as pilots, we own land. We're at the mercy of all the landowners. So we just can pay a little bit of respect to them. If you do land on their property, whatever site you're flying at, say sorry, couldn't make it out, landed here, please excuse me, whatever, take a glass of the cup. Right, and push it against the wall, and you know.
Make friends, not war. Simon was just telling me, I met him, that's like 5-6 years ago. He flew his remote control glider into my tandem at Signal Hill. And he was expecting a fight, but he didn't get it, and now we can be friends because I reached out and I didn't go and pick a fight. So,
Did you make it pay for it?
Did you stand on it?
I didn't break it.
I just took it for a flight.
Yeah. It was a stowaway on my tandem. So the sensitive area in Franschoek agricultural estate, just to reiterate, it's only a few people, and sorry to say, they're all foreigners. They can be gone tomorrow or not. So we have to really protect these relationships, because the more we have to put down in writing, we may not do that, we may not do this, we may not do that. It just complicates things down the line. We already now have a document that says where we're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed that. Something that we could have avoided, because the next crowd that comes in might not be so full of nonsense, and we get a nice landing area and they don't mind us landing there. But we really need to foster these relationships. Residents of the Franschoek agricultural estate have requested that low-level firmling over any houses and landing in the estate be avoided unless it is in an emergency situation. The designated emergency landing area is indicated on the attached diagram. An emergency landing in the estate will require an incident report to be submitted and proof of license and a permit be presented.
Is there a SOP incident?
Yes, yes, because it's an emergency. So we need to establish if emergencies are taking place at sites, we need to establish why they are taking place and who is it happening with. And if it's a problem, we can address it because we identified this time.
Can I say something? Because I think what's important here is what you've said is the emergency you have to, when you have an emergency, you have to have a cycle license, you have to have the permit. If you haven't got the permit, you don't know the rules and regulations. So
That's a Franschoek permit from
Yeah.
Montreal.
You sign in there. But what I want to suggest is maybe we can have thousands or whatever of the rules and regulations and put there. So every pilot that these guys see, he's got a big bag. When he signs in to take the permit, gets the rules and regulations.
Yeah, definitely something to look at.
Something like that.
Yeah, what I've
Then he
started.
cannot say, well, I didn't know.
And you can put it up in the office, just a couple of pages.
Yeah, so we can definitely print something out to put in the office,
And they
and
won't read it.
I've asked Montreal if we can put it up on their website, and then the guys at the gate can refer pilots to the website also to get it.
But yeah, we need to do something that when a guy signs in,
When they arrive
actually
there,
acknowledges that he's
someone
read,
says, "Do you
he's
know
read,
this?"
and he
Yeah.
signed it.
Yeah.
Can we not put a little thing, printed thing board?
Yes.
I think a link to the website.
Yeah.
It's just a few rules.
Yes.
You have to have your permit,
Yes. Very
you have
simple.
to be licensed, and you cannot land on the bloody place. And these are the two landing
That
spots.
must be sometimes we don't
Yeah.
complicate it. but-
Yeah.
No, the site rules as they stand at the moment is 2 pages.
I know, but I mean, if we have a summary for people when they arrive, anybody has to go
Yeah.
through the gate, they see it.
We're definitely going to do
And
that.
so there is no excuse.
No excuse.
All right, so yes, you guys from KBK will actually sort that out.
Yes.
Okay.
On it. So the emergency landing area, if you spend too much time on the slopes here in front of launch. So if you have a look there, it's not so clear now. Obviously, you guys with the internet connection, everything don't have it that clear. But below the road and below launch, it's actually very shallow. The fynbos is quite thick. There's protea trees of 1.5 meters plus. It's not a great place to go and scratch. If you are below launch or below the road, you are not getting up again. Just go out to landing. If you misjudge it or the day is funny and you can't make it to the landing field, there is the emergency landing field. So if you fly towards the Franschoek estate, basically in the center of the estate, there are 2 kidney-shaped dams. They'll come up in a second. There you can see the kidney-shaped dams. There is a house directly above it, and just to the south of that house, there's an open stand with a house behind it to the east. That open stand, there is the emergency landing field at the moment. It slopes quite steeply in a northwesterly direction. So sitting up on the northwestern side of it, let's see if I have another diagram here. No. I just want to go back in. Sitting up on the eastern side of it so that you can land in the northwestern direction is not a good idea, because you're setting up over a house, first of all, pissing someone off. Secondly, that there's a house, you can't really get that low above the house, and then it drops down quite a lot from where the road is to the bottom of the landing field, so it's very easy to overshoot. So I recommend establishing, if the wind is more south or more north, set up on either side to the south or the north of the landing area, and then land crosswind, like you can see that blue one, that little blue dot is coming in. So try to avoid setting up on the above the house, on the other side of the street here, but rather set up on the south, landing in northerly direction, or over these kidney shaped dams, landing in a southerly direction. But of course, first prize is to avoid the emergency landing completely. The emergency landing area is inside the estate. It's an undeveloped stand that has previously been cleared. It borders a tarred street on the southeastern side and slopes moderately with a northwestern aspect. The area is covered in rocks and returning fynbos vegetation. The lower northwestern half of the plot is very thick fynbos. Pilots should, once they've packed their gear, walk up to the tar road and then in a southwesterly direction to the gate. If you land in the estate, the security will ask you for proof of your license, your permit, Monticello permit, and a reason for why you've landed in the estate. They are friendly guys, the security guys. They do not have a problem with the paragliders, but they have a job to do and people pay them to do that job.
Can we in the rules possibly, I mean, with your experience flying a lot now, and also what I know, is make a rule that if you level with the road, fly out. Don't scratch below the road, because then it'll give you a much better chance of getting out of this stage.
I would definitely make that part of the site briefing,
Yeah.
but not the rules. We don't want to make too many rules, but definitely, yeah.
So that is stipulated when we do a briefing to everyone. That if you're, I always say, if you're 10 or 15, 20 meters above the road, you're not going to go out.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to make it easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I am.
Too many guys scratching below. I'm going to.
Yeah. Definitely, and learning to make these calls is an important part of being a good pilot. If you are a pilot that is constantly landing in strange places, you know, even on foofies, you know, if you fly cross country and you fly, that's different. But if you are doing foofies and sometimes you're landing there and sometimes you're landing there, you're not landing where you're planning to land. You're a poor pilot. You need to be able to make judgment calls well in advance so that your plan, so you can execute your plan and land where you want to land. It's a basic skill that you need to learn. And then there's been a specific request, and I must say this was a friendly request, so it's not someone that we have to go and drop bombs at his house at night. Also a foreign gentleman who lives in the house with the tennis courts. He's got two beautiful white Alsatians and they go absolutely mad when you fly over there. So we have to try and avoid the house. I have been trying to avoid the house as best I can, but the white Alsatians still go mad. But please do your best. This house is the house closest to our Chamonix landing and the Fynbos landing. So it's a tough one, but please do not fly directly overhead the house with the tennis courts. Finally, we've installed, thanks to the KBK Club, we financed another iWeather weather station. We've installed it on Matopi. Matopi is a little hill in the middle of the valley. Its southern end borders the Berg River Dam, and its western end, we drive past it. The western end is where Haijo Brewery is, more or less. You look up at Matopi there. It's approximately the same altitude as takeoff, which is handy. It's obviously in the middle of the valley, not up against the mountain there, so it might differ slightly. It's been up for a week or two, so I haven't really had a chance to see how accurate it is, but it seems to be working well. So far, I've noticed that when it's bad in Franschoek, it's actually a lot worse than I think it is. Like today, it was blowing over 50 km an hour east from 9 o'clock, where in Paul and other places it was still quite moderate and cool. But that, yeah, please access it, use it, and fly safely. If ever you want to go and fly at Franschoek, you're welcome to give me a call. This is Franschoek season, I tell everybody, and we like having people come and fly there from Cape Town and all over. But if you're not sure, please just give us a call. We're normally not far away, or we can give you advice on where. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Mias.
Thanks, Mias.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mias. That was really great.
Okay.
Thanks,